Hello there, this is the Digital Lost and thank you for stopping by. In this video, we'll be looking at a perfectly adequate chorus pedal that excels at doing strange spacey sounds and is very, very cheap. This is the Danelectro FAB Chorus. So very recently, I noticed that I had, I think about $4.38 in Musician's Friend's backstage points, which if you're not familiar with Musician's Friend, the website, if you spend a certain amount, that will give you points that you can put back into making purchases, and they do expire, and these points literally were going to expire the next day. And it's not a ton of money, and I kind of fooled myself into thinking, oh, I'll be wasting money if I don't use them, which is, that's a trap. But anyway, but I just started looking at pedals, and I'd been looking at the Danelectro pedals because if you've watched this channel before, you'll see that I'm a big fan of cheap pedals, even though I keep getting burned by them. There's just something alluring about them, and when they work, it's so exciting. It's so gratifying knowing that you didn't spend a ton of money and you've got something that just works well, and that's why I like the Behringer pedals. Through no reason, I'm not going to be all like, oh, Behringer they'd make dreams come true. Oh, they're helping me live my gear fantasies, blah, which seems to be a bit of a thing lately. But their pedals, I think, are great, especially if, like me, you play synths. There's always that concern that the housing is going to break because they're made of plastic. I use them on a desktop, so that's not going to be an issue. And even so, I don't think that they're really that poor quality. I did a video about it and synth use, which I will link below, where we listened to some of the pedals that I owned from Behringer and we tore them down, and we did look at whether they were going to be, you know, that weak quality wise. And yeah, have a look if you haven't. And I bring that up because if you're talking budget plastic pedals, you're always going to come across Danelectro. Now, I said I had this $4.30 odd cents with Musician's Friend. These guys are about $15, full price, brand new. And so I'm like, I don't have a chorus pedal, so let's give it a go. Great, $10 later, and like 3 days, I had this chorus pedal. I do own another Danelectro pedal. It's the Bacon and Eggs distortion here. This is a very strange pedal. This is a bit more expensive. I think they're around, I mean, depending what day of the week it is, $30 to $50-ish. Yeah, it's called a mini amp distortion pedal because this right here is actually a speaker, and its quality is akin to those little transistor radios that you would used to see people at sporting events like holding up to their ear listening to commentary. It's junk, and it's fun, and the distortion is just haywire. There are no controls except for on or off. So this is how that sounds. Like it's pretty wild actually. Again, the speaker is just not worth your time, but you know, it's fun and strange. It's very, very cheap plastic housing. It feels a lot cheaper than the chorus pedal, and as you can hear, that's the battery rattling in there. Like, but again, you get what you pay for. Well, actually, that's not true. I think you actually get a lot more than what you pay for, because I don't know how anyone, especially a company like Danelectro, can make a pedal like this good for this little money. And it's not like they just took an existing housing I mean, maybe I'm wrong, like, say in the comments below if you've seen this style of housing outside of Danelectro, but it's a very distinctive shape. Yeah, they didn't just go to the shelf and go, we have a bunch of these rectangular housings, be it with a paddle switch or with just an individual switch on the top. I mean, this looks designed. Whether the design works for you, that's personal opinion. It's got a very kind of hot roddy kind of, with fins and yeah, real 1950s piece of looking piece of gear here. But the design does bring in some problems, mostly the position of these knobs. If you play guitar, you're going to be looking down on it. If you play keyboard, you're still going to be looking down on it. Either way, you're going to be looking at it from this angle or somewhere closer to this. I don't know anyone that's looking at it from that angle. But that is where the knobs are. And of course, got a little bit of red on there so you can see the position, but it's tiny, it's difficult. If it's dark, you don't see that at all. And because, all right, so typically knobs, as they increase, they'll be going clockwise. Nothing's different here, except when you are looking at it from above, suddenly you are turning the opposite way. It just feels unnatural and it's strange, and it does take a little bit of getting used to. But yeah, get used to it, you do. So speaking of the knobs, what do we have? Absolute basic classic chorus controls. We have the mix control, which is of course wet dry mix. Completely dry, you don't hear much at all. It's not until you get to around noon on the dial does it really start to kick in, and then it can get it can get quite muddy. And next is the speed control, which of course controls the speed of the chorus effect. Much like the mix knob, not a lot going on when it's completely at its lowest position. Once you hit about noon though, it really starts to ramp up, and when you go full open, that's when you start to get into that sort of spacey sci-fi craziness. Like it just goes which really works in its favor actually. And the final knob is the depth, which of course increases how deep sounding the effect goes. And as I said, and as you probably just heard, once you start getting those settings up pretty high, it does go into weird sci-fi territory. A lot of those sounds were reminding me of old Doctor Who laser guns. I'm not talking current Doctor Who. I'm talking like the proper old stuff. I was thinking mostly Peter Davison era. If you remember Earthshock, maybe you do, I don't know. But Earthshock, there were these laser guns when they were shooting at the androids, and they made this very distinctive noise, and I'm not going to play it here because copyright issues, I don't know, in Doctor Who, of course. And all throughout that show, so many of the sound effects were, I mean, just old synthesizers, old test equipment, morphing just regular sounds. And, you know, I doubt that the BBC Radiophonic Workshop just pulled out their Danelectro FAB chorus pedal to make sound effects, but I think the principle and the spirit was probably very similar. But I think you get the idea. It's all about just using what you have on hand to just, in ways that aren't typical, just to really just send sounds just out into space. In fact, it reminded me of Doctor Who so much. It was to the point where I even started to just start playing random sound effects. Well, I say sound effects, just playing, you know, just instruments through the chorus pedal at extreme levels. And it really did fit in with a lot of the, like the laser sounds, to the point where I made a very short scene with action figures for some reason. And yes, this is a music channel, but there is no music in this clip. Just laser gun sound effects and a background droning hum. But don't worry, it only goes for 50 seconds and is of questionable quality. Enjoy. Well, now that that's over, let's have a look inside this pedal just so we can get an idea of build quality and, you know, how these things are constructed. So here we have the chorus pedal in all its glory. Let's pop it open and see what's inside. It is a plastic screw on the bottom there. Typically I wouldn't use a screwdriver on a plastic screw for fear of stripping the thread, but it was very firmly in there, so I just loosened it. Standard heavy metal base with the rubber bottom, which makes up the bulk of the weight and structural integrity too, much like the Behringer pedals. You can see here that the plastic screw does go into a plastic thread on the housing. If it was a metal screw going into that plastic housing or vice versa, I might be more concerned, but plastic into plastic, not the end of the world. Yeah, battery compartment, it's the most basic of basic, which is fine and to be expected. Yeah, but there's really not a whole lot in here. Let's get these screws out of here. We'll see what this switch is made up of. Those screws just hold in that paddle, which you can see has a plunger on it with a spring, which is, I'm assuming, a micro switch on that little board there. I did try to get it out, but I don't know if it was glued in or just wedged in there tight from the factory, but I did not want to force the issue at all. But I'm sure we get the idea there, so we'll get that back on. Let's have a look at these boards here. Again, not a whole lot to it. I'm going to say it's safe to assume these will be board-mounted jacks and knobs, but we'll get this board off and we'll have a look, see for ourselves. Yeah, plastic seems fine. It's kind of akin to those like cheap bath and pool toys we see for sale around the place. It's fine. As soon as that metal base plate came off, the whole thing did feel a lot flimsier though. Might be a bit hard to see, but interestingly, there's a bit of blue residue on this screw here. I don't know whether that was a thread locker they put on there or whether that is the result of metal screw going into plastic, which is touching on what we mentioned earlier. None of the other screws seem to have it, so I'm going to assume it was a plastic coming off into the screw thread. All right, so yeah, as we thought, definitely board-mounted jacks. I would assume the pots are as well. Was thinking about trying to get that board out, but it was pretty tight in there. Interestingly, you can see these circular parts here where side-mounted jacks might typically be on a pedal. I don't know if Danelectro makes a pedal in this style with side jacks or whether it's just something left over from the manufacturing process. I just thought it interesting. If you know if they do make a side-mounted pedal, yeah, let me know down below. But again, I couldn't really get that board out with the pots on there, but yeah, it's safe to assume they're going to be board mounted. And we'll get it back together. Just finger tighten the screw now. We're putting it back in there. But yeah, build quality wise, it all seems fine to me. That switch is a bit difficult to hit. It's fine if you're just pressing it with your fingers if it's up on a desktop, which it will be for me using it for synths. But I imagine it'd be hard to really slam it hard if you're using your feet, say guitar playing. But other than that, yeah, no complaints at all. Looks good to me. Well, we've talked about this pedal for a while. We've had a look on the inside, and we've heard some of the sounds it can make. But now all that's left really, I think, is to just finally just get into how it sounds when we're making music. Again, this is all synth sounds. Everything you hear will be the Yamaha Reface CS and Novation circuits. We'll be hearing different synth sounds and tunes. We'll also hear some drums, and then we'll just hear how it all comes together and maybe even mix it with some other budget pedals to really drive home some of that space sound. So that was the Danelectro FAB chorus pedal. Any regrets? Absolutely not. $15 at full price. It's kind of a no-brainer. It's to the point where I'm definitely going to try out a couple of their other pedals. I keep saying in these videos for cheap pedals, I'm just going to swear off cheap pedals, but when we're talking $15 to $20 and it's that much, that good quality, it's really hard not to, especially when, again, at extreme settings, it can drive a sound just so strangely. Yeah, it's good enough that I can look past the little like tick noise when you sometimes press the switch. And yeah, it's definitely, they've definitely piqued my interest. Yeah, it's certainly enough that I am very interested in trying out some more of their pedals. And when I do, I'll definitely be putting up a video about that. So thank you for watching. If you did find this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up / like button. While you're here, check out some more of my channel. There are other gear reviews, like similarly budgeted stuff. Plenty of music as well. I love to make music. I don't just buy this stuff and sit it on a shelf. So yeah, please check out some more of my videos. If you're still liking what you're seeing, please consider a subscription. It really is helpful. If you feel you have anything to add as well, go ahead and comment below, ask questions. I really love that interaction. I'm very responsive too. So yeah, questions or comments below. Thumbs up if you enjoyed this or if you found it helpful. And yeah, again, please consider a subscription. But again, thanks for watching. Check back for more videos. This has been The Digital Lost, and yeah, just keep making music. Cheers. And as a side note to that design, it's a bit like a computer mouse. I found, like, when I was recording audio for the demo just behind us there, I legit once or twice grabbed the pedal instead of my mouse. So that's a thing.